Good evening and welcome to the Coon Rapids Council meeting, City Council meeting for Monday, August 1st, 2022. If we could all please rise and join for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I'm going to try and put my words in the right order for the rest of the meeting now. Please call the order.
Councilmember Griscoviac.
Here.
Councilmember Ray Rauer.
Here.
Councilmember Hernandez Jr.
Here.
Councilmember Geisler.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Carlson.
Here.
Mayor Cook.
Here. Thank you. The first thing here is to adopt this evening's agenda.
I'll move.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by Geisler. Any discussion or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And the agenda is adopted. We're looking at the minutes, approving the minutes from the July 19th meeting.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Griscoviac.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of July 19th, 2022.
Second.
Motion by Griscoviac, second by Carlson. Any discussion or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. One abstention, Councilmember Ray Rauer. We have two items on our consent agenda this evening. And the first one is to approve the temporary on-sale strong beer and wine liquor license to the Coon Rapids North Star Lions for a military softball tournament at Sand Creek Park. The appropriate fees have been paid, background investigation is being completed, and the certificate of insurance for liquor liability has been ordered. The temporary on-sale strong beer and wine liquor license will be valid from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. from September 9th through September 11th, 2022. Approval of the temporary on-sale strong beer and wine liquor license is contingent upon a successful background investigation and the submittal of a valid certificate of insurance for liquor liability. So our first item will be to approve the temporary strong beer and wine liquor license for Coon Rapids North Star Lions for use at a military softball tournament to be located at Sand Creek Park, 1008 Northdale Boulevard on September 9, 10, and 11, 2022, contingent upon a successful background investigation and submittal of a valid certificate of insurance for liquor liability. The next item on our consent agenda is item 3, to consider planning case 21-50, adopt resolution 22-82, approving a final plat for SCF-Coon Rapids. This is 8840, 8850 Evergreen Boulevard. And this is an unusual thing to have on our consent agenda, isn't it? I don't recall seeing one of these before on our consent.
Your Honor, I think we concluded, since you had considered the preliminary plat not too many months ago, that it was appropriate to just put the final plat on.
It seems non-controversial. I was just surprised to see it here. All right. So in planning case 21-50, the City Council will approve resolution 22-82, granting the final plat approval for SCF-Coon Rapids with the following condition, and that is that all engineering comments be addressed. And then this, just to be clear, this is a plat to a 22.9 acre parcel into two lots, and it's down around 8840 and 8850 Evergreen Boulevard down in our industrial park. Item 4 on our consent agenda is to adopt resolution 22-83, accepting donation of real property. Atlantic Funding Corporation has offered to donate to the city real property of 38.01 acres, legally described as, well, then it's a legal description, but the parcel is located in the Gateway Development area northwest of Hanson Boulevard and Highway 10, and consists of floodplain, wetlands, and open space adjacent to Coon Creek. A strip of the northern portion is anticipated to be used for construction of a segment of the Coon Creek Trail. It would be in the public's interest to accept this real property donation. So we're looking to adopt resolution 22-83, accepting the land donation and authorize staff to execute the necessary documents to complete the transaction. And those are our three items on the consent agenda.
Your Honor,
Councilmember Rayrauer,
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
motion by Rayrauer, second by Geisler. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Griscoviac?
regarding item number 4, accepting the donation of that real property, I know we've talked about this in workshops before, but I did have some questions from some constituents asking what the market value is of that piece of property today and what the tax value is. Do we have that?
I do not have that information, Mr. Ember. It doesn't have a lot of value, I don't think. It's owned by, Mr. Cooley is Atlantic Funding, and he was the one that was agreeable to donate the property. I bet by the end of this meeting, though, we can find that up on GIS.
I think it's pretty minimal because it's all wetland. That was the whole purpose of the donation.
Right, yeah, no, I understand that, and I see in the deed here, it says the total consideration for this transfer is less than $3,000. I would imagine it's worth more than $3,000, but I would like to know what the tax value is, not only for the city of Coon Rapids, but Anoka County, just for my records and for answering the constituents' concern.
Any other discussion or questions?
Your Honor,
Councilmember Johnson?
just a quick question. Is this the nearly 40-acre one that's next to the, or that has the big pond on it?
No.
Yes,
Okay.
it's
Okay.
And
adjacent to the Pheasant Hollow plat that we approved a couple years ago.
right.
All right, yep. All right, any other discussion or questions on the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember
I
Griscoviac?
think it's in the best interest of the city to accept this donation. I think we have some plans for it, and then this keeps it as a nature preserve. But again, I would, if you could give me that information, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
I'm sure they will get back.
Just making sure.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the consent agenda is adopted. And I see Mr. Brown seems to be queued up for item 5, I'll bet. Planning case 22-12, site plan 43-unit apartment building 4021 Coon Rapids Boulevard.
That's right, and good evening. So this property is located at the northeast corner of Coon Rapids Boulevard and Blackfoot Street, about a .83 acre parcel that is currently vacant. It's bounded by 3 streets adjacent to what used to be known as the Loftus Center Apartments, now known as CR Flats. Some additional apartment buildings generally to the north and east of the property, Mercy Hospital to the south and west, some medical office uses on other sides of it. This is a site plan, obviously, for a 43-unit apartment building. Site plans in the Port zoning district where this is located need to be tied to or consistent with the Port master plan. So this is our current Port Wellness master plan, and it shows that area on the north side of Coon Rapids Boulevard, generally on either side of Blackfoot Street, is suitable for either office or residential development. And here is the site plan. So again, 43 units. The building would generally be oriented toward the corner of Blackfoot Street. Coon Rapids Boulevard has just over a 20-foot setback from the Coon Rapids Boulevard right-of-way, which is a conforming setback. Generally, we want to see a fairly consistent street wall along there with a shallow yard that meets that. The front entrance of the building would face Blackfoot Street, and there would be kind of an outdoor amenity area on that side. The building would be connected to the public sidewalk network from that public entrance. There are currently city sidewalks on both Blackfoot and Coon Rapids Boulevard. There is a sidewalk currently under construction along Zia Street. That street is being reconstructed during this construction season, so all 3 of those streets will have sidewalks and good pedestrian access. As for parking, the building would be served by both underground parking and a surface lot. An underground garage with 25 parking stalls would be accessed from the north side of the building. You can see there the driveway would slope down to the garage entrance. And then there would be a total of 39 spaces provided at the surface. level. Some of those spaces would be on the adjacent property, the CR Flats property. And I will mention that the applicant here is the owner of that building as well. They also own the Heritage Heights apartment complex nearby. So we kind of look at this as an integrated project, or one that is kind of a continuation of the adjacent uses. So there will be no new curb cuts or public street access, at least vehicular access proposed as part of this project. The access would be provided through the existing parking lot of CR Flats, which is accessed off of Zia Street. Here's the landscape plan. The landscape quantities proposed meet or exceed the city's standards. I'll note that there are several mature oak trees along the Coon Rapids Boulevard frontage. About 8 of those would be preserved as part of this, since they're generally nice trees in good shape. Here is the first floor plan of the building. Plans for the additional floors are included in your packet, but I just wanted to call out the first floor in particular, just because it provides access to the amenity areas and outdoor spaces on both the east and west sides of the property. So you can see there in the center is the common area. There would be a fitness room. Trash would all be handled internally there with that access from the east side of the building. A total of 8 units would be located on the first floor. The second, third, and fourth floors would also include a number of units. Most of this building would be efficiency and 1-bedroom units. There are 4 2-bedroom units, and all of the units meet the minimum square footage requirements in our code. So those 2-bedroom units, just over 900 square feet. We have a 500 and 600 square foot minimum for efficiency and 1-bedroom, respectively. And since in the River Rapids Overlay District, and I won't go into all the details of zoning compliance, since those are included in your packet, but I did want to highlight, just because outdoor amenities and the relationship of the building to the street are generally important things in the River Rapids Overlay District. So I wanted to call attention to those outdoor spaces that are proposed both on the east and west sides of the building, that include seating areas, barbecue areas, other tables and conversation areas to really activate those street frontages. And then outdoor lighting is another thing that's important in the River Rapids Overlay District. So this drawing just shows the types of outdoor lighting proposed. So there'll be some bollard style lighting along the sidewalks, overhead canopy lighting. In the canopies that overhang the kind of gateways to the outdoor areas, as well as some wall sconces in those areas. Next, here are the building elevations, and I will say that all of the building elevations meet or exceed the guidelines of the River Rapids Overlay District when it comes to types of building materials proposed, the massing of the facade, breaking up roof lines. So you can see there the north and south elevations. The north elevation, of course, where the parking garage entrance is. So it would be burnished block on that foundation level, and then a combination of brick and fiber cement lap siding on those elevations. We do have in the River Rapids Overlay District a minimum 30% of brick or stone for all elevations facing a public street, which would be 3 elevations in this case, and all of those elevations exceed that. They're closer to 40%. And here are the east and west elevations. You can see there architectural metal panel would be used to kind of delineate both those entrance areas on the east and west sides of the building. So here's some perspective drawings. Here's looking from the north and west. You can see the garage entrance, the surface parking area, as well as the main entrance of the building facing Blackfoot Street. This is from the south and west, from the corner. You can also see on the south side there, a roof deck is proposed on the 4th floor, so an additional amenity, and that also provides a little bit more of a street presence on Coon Rapids Boulevard. And here is a view from the south and east. You can see the mature trees there, as well as that east entrance that would connect over to the parking lot expansion of the parking lot for CR Flats. And then finally, here is looking from the north and east, you can see that expansion of the existing parking lot as well as the east entrance there. Wanted to address the areas of flexibility that are requested. Of course, in the Port District and in the River Rapids Overlay District, we have more prescriptive standards, so it's not uncommon that there is a need to deviate from certain ones of those. So there are 3 requests for flexibility as part of this project. The first is for use flexibility related to the level of density, and then there is a request for dimensional flexibility related to both parking and the maximum setback from a public street. The findings generally similar for both of those, a little more detailed for use flexibility, so you can see those on the screen. As it relates to the density, I'll just go over, in the Port zoning district, a maximum of, or up to 30 units per acre is allowed by right. This is a 0.83 acre site, a total of 43 units are proposed, so that is a level of density of 51.4 units per acre. The comprehensive plan guides this area, so in addition to the Port Master Plan, we have guidance from the city's comprehensive plan that provides higher level guidance for land use decisions in this area. And this area is guided for commercial mixed use. And in that area, commercial office development is allowed as well as residential development. And it guides it for up to 50 units per acre. And we look at that density on a district-wide basis. So even though this site may be 51.4 units per acre, when you look at the somewhat lower density of the adjacent building as well as other properties in that district, we're falling within that. So it is possible in the Port District to exceed that 30 units per acre, but a project would need to meet the findings for flexibility. So we've outlined those in the staff report. Generally, we feel that a project of about this density does in fact advance the intent of the Port District by providing housing for employees of existing institutional uses such as the hospital, such as Anoka Ramsey Community College. We also feel that this project, because it meets or exceeds all of the design standards, is furthering that intent of the Port zoning district. So I'll note that there aren't any requests for design flexibility as part of this project. We worked closely with the applicant to ensure that that was the case and that we had really high quality building materials, a high level of amenity, and a well-designed building to make that trade-off. And then the findings for dimensional flexibility, a little more straightforward. So one of those requests relates to the parking proposed. In really all of the multifamily areas in the city, our current parking standard is 2.25 spaces per housing unit. We acknowledge in some settings that makes a lot of sense. In other settings, it maybe is a little bit on the high side. Overall, we felt that this finding could be met in order to just provide better integration of uses. I'll note that this building is a little bit different from other multifamily projects that have been approved in recent years in that the units for the most part are very small units. So they tend to lend themselves to, a one-person household or a very small household. So it's not likely that those units would have a large number of people living in them and subsequently a large number of vehicles. So a total of 1.49 spaces per unit are proposed. So it's a total of 64 spaces, 25 in the lower level garage and 39 surface level spaces. If you look on a per bedroom basis, which can be a good metric It's at, because there are only 4 two-bedroom units, it ends up being about 1.4 parking spaces per bedroom. So when we look at some of the other recent projects that have been built or been approved, in most cases, those projects, while they have some efficiency in one-bedroom units, that's not the majority of them. They have kind of a mix of units. So some of those other projects, if you look on a per-bedroom basis, they're maybe closer to 0.8, 0.9, or 1 spaces per bedroom, where this is at 1.4. So we did work closely with the applicant to kind of maximize the amount of parking that's on site. Nonetheless, there is that request for flexibility. And then finally, the last request for flexibility relates to the maximum setback. And that is along, the building does meet our setback requirements along the Coon Rapids Boulevard frontage, along collector and local streets in the Port District, and that would include both Blackfoot and Zia. There is a minimum setback of 10 feet, but a maximum setback of 20 feet, with the idea of having that consistent street wall along public streets, much like we have in this case along Coon Rapids Boulevard. However, because this site has frontage on 3 different streets and is relatively small, it would be pretty challenging to situate the building to have that shallow of a setback and still meet all of the open space requirements, provide surface parking, and some of those other requirements. So we felt that that was an appropriate use for flexibility as well. And then here is the proposed motion language. I won't read through it since it's included in your packet. Basically, we're recommending approval of the site plan as well as for both the use flexibility and dimensional flexibility. The Planning Commission considered this at its July meeting, recommended in favor of all of those items, the site plan as well as the flexibility on a 5-2 vote. So we do have representatives of the applicant here to answer any questions. I'm happy to answer any questions as well. And that's all I have at the moment.
Mr. Brown, the 3931 Coon Rapids Boulevard, the old Loftus Center next door. So you're saying that if they have overage, the parking can go there, they can blend in there. You know what their parking ratio is? Or how
Their
many
parking
spaces they
ratio,
have?
right now, that building has 33 units and has 38 parking spaces. So it would have, the parking ratio would be less than what is proposed here. It is my understanding, and the applicant can maybe better address some of the specifics of the actual parking demand, but it's our understanding and just based on some of my site visits and such that amount of parking is working for that site. I'd let the applicant address some of the specifics about who might be able to park where and such, but this is kind of being designed as an integrated project.
You're on.
Councilmember Ray Rower?
Is that top floor terrace for sure a part of the plan? It sounded like it was a maybe. I wasn't.
Well, it is shown on the floor plans
Okay.
and it is shown in the building design. I mean, I would say if that changed, we would probably want to bring the site plan back for reconsideration. I would consider that a pretty significant
Okay.
change, so that
I
is
just
part of it.
commented that, was going to comment that I really like the look of it. I like that amenity specifically, the landscaping and the seating areas too. Look very nice, and I very much appreciate keeping as many of the mature trees as possible, so, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler?
Mr. Brown, a quick question with the potential, I didn't read anything and maybe I missed it, a shared parking agreement that we would request to be put in place because they're 2 separate parcels and should one ever get sold to me, that should be part of any sort of agreement?
We did in motion language include a requirement for reciprocal easements. That's what that's getting at. And as we
Did
would
I miss it
review
in
those,
here?
we would ensure that. Yeah, condition number 6, provide a copy of reciprocal easements.
Oh, there, sorry. Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Carlson?
Mr. Brown, this may be a question for the Hornigs, but I was wondering with the 25, indoor parking spots, typically there'd be a charge for that, right, an additional charge, and so let's say worst-case scenario, people don't want to pay the annual charge. I was wondering if in the Hornig's experience, is this, do these usually fill, or?
Yeah, I would let them come up to the microphone and
Yeah.
address those parking details.
I'd just like to make sure we're not down to 39.
Of course. Hi. Good evening. My name's Bernadette Hornig, one of the 4 Hornigs here tonight. We do have the advantage of owning the properties next door. We do charge for the garages at CR Flats, formerly Loftus. Those are all occupied, and they're quick to fill up. I mean, fortunately or unfortunately, we live in Minnesota, and so people really value having their car warm and snow-free. So in our experience, those are generally the first stalls that people take. Also at Heritage Heights, which is adjacent down the street on Zia, our garages are full. So people park there, and they do pay an additional cost for that. So, just to comment on the CR Flats parking, as Matt mentioned, there are 38 stalls. We currently have 24 registered vehicles there. And so we've owned that property for 2 years, and it's stayed pretty steady there. And at Heritage Heights down the street, we have 350 stalls. It's a much larger property with 192 units. We have 239 registered vehicles there. So we do feel like what we're providing based on the market is going to be a very good fit for this. And we're excited about this project in particular because Heritage Heights is predominantly 2 bedrooms. And so we've seen market demand through CR Flats and others for these smaller units. And so that's really why we've targeted this market with desire for some new construction, but also for these smaller floor plans that we are not able to offer at our other properties.
Go ahead.
Ms. Hornig, just one more question.
Sure, of course.
Is there any, let's say, worst-case scenario, right? Worst-case scenario, there isn't enough room in that lot. Is there any room for expansion between the 2 lots, between CR Flats and the new, if you had to?
I mean, it's a tricky case, balancing, we don't want to pave over everything, to create more parking. So we've really tried to be intentional about creating smart parking solutions, but also providing space for the mature trees and grass and parking. So, I mean, there's always a possibility, but it would be at the sacrifice of the green space, right? So we don't necessarily want to do that, and we really do feel like it's ample, and as was mentioned, that there's opportunity to do shared parking between the 2 properties as needed, and so we feel really confident, based on our experience, that it's going to be more than adequate parking provided.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Johnson.
just a follow-up question, and forgive me if I missed it in the materials. As we kind of evolve with the kind of vehicles that people are driving, is there a provision at your place for electric vehicle charging? Are you going to
Yeah.
put that in?
So the plan is to wire the garage for the underground garage for electric vehicle parking. And it's actually something that we're looking at across our portfolio, because even at CR Flats and Heritage Heights, more and more people are buying electric vehicles. And so pre-wiring, so that we have that availability is definitely part of our intention, to also be able to provide that service, because we don't currently have electric vehicle charging at the other locations. So
Very
that's
good.
also another exciting amenity.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Rare?
Councilmember Geisler.
Yeah, I don't know how many of you remember, but there were a number of different proposals, and one was what is now going to be the new U-Haul storage. But the college and the hospital both were very excited about finally getting some housing
Yep.
closer to the hospital, closer to the college, where they could attract workers and it would be convenient for them. And so I see this as a great win for our community to be able to support those businesses and have a place for workers close by to be able to serve their needs. So I'm in support of this project.
The CR Flats next door, is that 3 stories? Or is that's 3 stories, right?
Yes.
Okay.
They're a little taller stories because it was built as like a rehab facility. So it's,
Yeah.
the proportions of the building are slightly different. So it's a tall 3-story building.
It's the only part I'm still getting my arms around is that 52 unit, or the 52 units to an acre, you know, it's like, oh.
You know, and I guess I remember back in planning days when we were looking to set the port standards, and it was, do we need an upper limit? And there was an awful lot of conversation of not even putting an upper limit in the high-density zoning. And that went back and forth, and it almost went through as no limit. Because of small parcels like this where, you know, we knew that there's always going to be some challenges. And so with the addition of the flexibility, everybody on planning at that point was like, okay, it makes sense to have that limit. 30 seemed, you know, the shot in the dark that we took. But knowing that there was the flexibility that when a small site came up and the right project, that we would have the flexibility to adjust if needed. And I think this is just an example of that case.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Carlson?
I was also a little concerned with the density, but seeing as it's next to a smaller building, part of almost the same complex, it didn't bother me as much.
That's important that it doesn't bother you.
I know it's,
So
I'm thrilled. I didn't realize that you had bought the building next door. You know, I should have known when the complaint stopped all those years ago.
Yeah, we're very proud of our work at the Loftus Center, formerly CR Flats. We obviously owned Heritage Heights next door, and so we were well aware of the activities that were happening there, and we my in-laws, Barb and Dave, actually made that decision. I'm not gonna lie, thought they were a little crazy. We added 3 units there, and we're really able to stabilize the property and did a lot of interior improvements and exterior improvements. And we went from having the highest police calls of any property in Coon Rapids. And that's for the size of the building, I mean, that is not the kind of notoriety that you want.
But it's what it had.
And now it's just, we operate it similar to Heritage Heights, and the management team that runs Heritage Heights and the Loftus Center would also be managing this property as well. They've been with us forever, and, the long-term stability of this block in this corner has really been important to us. And so once we stabilized that, we looked at this, again, my father-in-law looked next door, and that piece of property was available, and we probably would never have developed it if we hadn't kind of fixed up the Loftus Center, because we thought, who would want to live next door to that, right? But
Right.
now that it's all stabilized, we feel really good about putting in kind of a higher end product there, right? Which you probably wouldn't have thought about doing a few years ago. So I think it'll be a really big asset to the community as well.
Who we got over here? I've been looking this way for so long. Well, go ahead, Councilmember Hernandez.
Yeah,
Jr.
just one question, so is that what the market's trending to? Is it more just single people now, single, younger, 20s, 30s? Is that what it's going to, what the,
We have a very diverse population at Heritage Heights, and, but again, it's a large property that's majority 2 bedrooms, and we just are seeing a demand for people from the hospital and the college. We do some marketing outreach at Anoka Ramsey Community College, and so there's just demand. But I would say the thing that's, to us, is great about Coon Rapids is that we're seeing demand from all different age ranges, from, and we want to be able to offer and meet that need to a very diverse, from senior citizens looking to downsize to, students to families. We feel like we're able to kind of provide a bunch of different options right in that area.
Yeah, and that's a perfect location right there.
Yeah, I
so.
mean, you get everything. You have, the shopping center right
Yes.
there, parks, it's all right there. So we're really excited about the neighborhood.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Councilmember Carlson.
I might as well just get it out there. Hornig has such a wonderful reputation for how well Hornig runs Heritage Heights. And what Hornig did with the old Loftus Center is just incredible and so appreciated. So the work at Heritage Heights and the work with Loftus Center is so appreciated. I've spoken to a couple of sources who have worked with Hornig and just gave just glowing reviews for Hornig. Hornig, you know, as a management company, and of course specifically Renata.
Yes,
Just,
we all love
boy,
Renata.
is she a blessing. And so I just heard nothing but great things about Hornig, specifically Renata, and from a couple different sources, so I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. I'd love to hear that.
Your Honor?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Scovia?
I'll agree with that, Mr. Carlson, that, you know, sounds like a great company. It sounds like you guys have been doing this a long time, 50 years plus. And Matt, Mr. Brown, a nice job on the presentation, by the way, really, really well done. But I do have a couple of questions, maybe some concerns. The 3 stories, I think, is a concern for me, the parking and the density. But I guess a larger question is, we get developers that come in and they know our code, they know our ordinances, and we come in with these really big variances and this design flexibility questions. And I'm just wondering, maybe it's a question for the staff, but do we need to adjust our code and our ordinances so we don't have such big variances? I mean, we're looking at 30 units per acre, and this is 51, 2.25 parking, not 1.49. So I have some other questions, but what do you think of that?
Yeah, I think there's certainly some room for discussion there. Obviously, the Port District and the River Rapids Overlay District were developed really in about the early 2000s, and there are a lot of aspects of both of those that are still very relevant today. I think certainly the design standards and some of the dimensional requirements are still valid and relevant. I think, you know, as it relates to density and parking, obviously those are the 2 big issues here. Otherwise, the project really complies with the code. I think we've just seen a shift in the market over that time. You know, as Councilmember Geisler mentioned at the time, those regulations were developed, which is now, you know, getting to be close to 20 years ago. You know, something of like a townhouse density, I think, was considered a pretty dense project for some of these areas, and now that may not be the case. There was a long period of time where we just saw no real interest in new construction market rate apartments in areas like this, and some of that has shifted. So I think certainly there's room for conversation about what the specifics are, and that can certainly give applicants a better sense of, you know, what might ultimately be approved. Right. That said, you know, when we have a comprehensive plan that calls for a certain level of density, when we have the findings for flexibility, which are easier to make than those for a variance. You'll notice that we grant very few variances in other zoning districts, but in this overlay district and in the Port District, because we just have a lot more prescriptive standards, it's going to be likely that projects are not going to be able to meet absolutely everything. So the flexibility, I guess the positive thing about the flexibility is it does provide more opportunity for trade-offs. So, you know, if we go higher in density, it, you know, maybe means we absolutely have to meet or exceed the design standards, which in a lot of ways this project does.
Well, I appreciate that, and
Yeah.
clarification is good, a variance versus flexibility. Yeah, there's no variance here needed, but the flexibility. Underground parking, I think the parking is kind of a concern. I mean, we saw Springbrook Apartments with their low parking ratio, and that didn't work out. They had to build another parking lot. And Ms. Hornick, you just mentioned that your underground parking sells out right away, but correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't even have 1 underground parking lot per unit here, do we?
No.
No? Okay. So again, that kind of, I think there's going to be an issue there. I'm not sure where those cars might park.
Your Honor.
Councilmember Johnson?
If I may. I think, I appreciate Councilmember Griscoviac's question along those lines. I think one of the major differences between Springhouse and this one is that those were much more, there were many more bedrooms in the units there. And so that kind of brought much more of a market of bringing families or even groups of people living together. And of course, management was also and remains also a question in my mind on that, and I
Sure.
expect this property to be managed far more differently than that one. I just wanted to say, just very briefly, you know, I have those similar questions on the parking as we came in here, but especially after your presentation and answering questions, frankly, it's a big confidence builder for me. So I like the project, and I think it's going to really be very appealing to people, whether it be nurses or professionals or, you know, people doing their residency or whatever in that area. I mean, it'll be a very attractive property and so convenient. So I fully support it.
Are we ready?
Mr. Mayor, just another, you know, just to the parking, and I understand that they're all flats or studios, but I think those renters are going to have vehicles. It's not like we're in downtown Minneapolis where you can just walk to every convenience, you know, pharmacies and coffee shops and bars and nightclubs and all that. I think they will have cars, and I think that the parking is a bit of an issue still. The other issue is, and I think it was talked about in the Planning Commission, but there's no play area here, and I think I can get over that because there's a playground like within walking distance, a quarter mile away or so. But I would like to see it less dense. I would like to see it at 3 stories and underground parking up to code.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler?
You know, I think, you know, to Mr. Councilmember Griscoviac's point, I think from a code perspective, you know, we could look at a few things, and the challenge that if we do that, our parking standards right now are really high. They're probably going to come down, and our density standard is probably a little low, and it's going to go up. And so it's going to make this, a project like this, require less flexibility. You know, so, and I think the whole point of flexibility is looking at what is the best and highest use for a piece of property. I believe this is it here. I think it's a great project. I think it's going to greatly serve the community, and I think it will fit. I mean, you've got the hospital, the professional building are all both very tall buildings right across both directions from this place. The Loftus Center is, well, it's 3 stories, is a tall 3 stories. So it's not going to stick out in relationship to the rest of the things there. So with that, I'm going to make a motion in planning case 2212 to approve the site plan with the following conditions. 1, comply with Title 11. 2, address all engineering and sustainability comments. 3, enter into a site security agreement with the city. 4, pay park dedication in the amount of $1,360 per apartment unit prior to the issuance of building permits. 5, provide exterior guest bicycle parking. 6, provide copy of reciprocal easements. And also, can I do this all together, Mr.? Okay. And a motion to approve planning case 2212 to approve the use flexibility for a density of 51.4 units per acre, finding that the modification is significantly advances the intent of the Port District, will result in gained efficiencies, and provide significant site amenities, buffers, and other elements to offset any potential harmful effects that could be caused by the use. And motion to approve planning case 2212 dimensional flexibility for parking and building setbacks, finding that the modifications are necessary to respond to site conditions, will result in better integration of uses or additional public amenities, and will further the intent of the Port District.
Second.
Motion by Geisler and a second by Rayrauer. Further discussion?
Your Honor.
Councilmember Rayrauer?
I would just add, my support also comes from listening to the developer of how the 2 apartment buildings next door, the parking lots are not full and they have more bedrooms. So knowing that data that exists right now, I'm comfortable with the number of parking spots. And in addition, I did drive by that corner to take a look, and I think the way this building is designed and looks is going to fit in really well with all the other things in that area, the other apartment buildings all around it and the hospital across. So I'm in support.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Griscovi?
I think it's a great design. Architecturally, you guys nailed it. You put a lot of thought into this. I love the spaces on each side of the building. But the density is just too much for me. We've been approving higher than normal densities, and I can't support it at 51.4 when our code is 30. I'd like to see it at 3 level and get our density up to our code.
I'm just struggling with it. I don't, because we've been burned with parking. And I think that Hornings have done all of their homework, and and if they were gonna be the ones that own this for the next 50 years, I probably would be no issues. I'm having some concerns with the number of units and the number of parking. But I'm sensing we have some traction to go forward, though. Any other discussion? We have a motion and we have a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No. That motion carries. To oppose, Mayor Cook and Councilmember Griscoviac. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
And everybody that I thought might have been here for other business, or for open mic, is leaving, so thank you. We're up to other business? Or no, we're up to open mic. Is anybody here for open mic? Stretch? You good? No? All right. All right, then we're up to other business.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember
I think we've
Geisler?
got 2 key things to start out with. We'll start with Mr. Stemwell and ask him to give us an update of the CRA LL Little League.
Mayor and council, I was thinking you might ask for the update on the estimated market value of the Cooley property, which is $22,800 for pay 23, so.
Thank you.
That's from the county assessor's website. Yes, so the Coon Rapids Andover Little League team, so each year, for those who aren't familiar, the 12-year-old season of your Little League season is the biggest season of them all. And potentially, as a 12-year-old all-star team, you can work your way all the way to the Little League World Series in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, which would happen later this month. And the sequence of that is you have to play in your district, so each state has Little League districts. If you win your district or do well enough, you might make it to state. If you win state, you go to regions. And then if you win your region, you go to the Little League World Series. Well, the Coon Rapids Andover 12-year-old team just won state this weekend, and so they're heading out to the Midwest Region Tournament in Indiana on Wednesday. Play will start on Friday. So many of you probably recall the run that the Coon Rapids Andover team had in 2019, where they were able to win their region and successfully made it to the Little League World Series and even won a game while they were out there. So they had a really nice showing. So this group isn't quite there yet, but they're doing everything they can to potentially get there. And the reason I know so much about that is I have a son on the team. So, so we are looking forward to a little bit of week of chaos and fun and representing the Coon Rapids community. And it'll be covered by ESPN Plus most of the early games, and then if we make it far enough, on the regular ESPN channel. So all you have to do is Google it, and you can find the schedules out there and whatever other information you're looking for.
Or pretty much walk into any bar in Coon Rapids.
Or any bar. Now, I should note, at least our early games are all 10 a.m. Eastern Time or 9 a.m. Central Time. So
Okay, so
hopefully
Bloody
there's some
Marys
bars
instead
that
of beer.
open up.
Okay.
Yeah, Bloody Mary bar. That's what
Breakfast baseball.
you got it.
So,
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, all the best, and hope they have a great run out there.
Let's hope.
and then, Mr. Mayor, the next thing I was going to do is pitch off to Captain Stanky, because tomorrow is Night to Unite.
Thank you, Councilmember Geisler. Tomorrow night, biggest night of the year for our police department, Night to Unite. We have 95 registered parties, so we're pretty excited about that. The numbers came up close to normal. post-pandemic, so that's exciting. We have 25 officers ready to drive around town, respond to parties, answer questions, hand out some police department swag. Fire department will be doing the same. Coincidentally, I just came from the multicultural night-to-night kickoff event at Sand Creek Park, which was very well attended, and I spoke to quite a few citizens who are excited for night-to-night tomorrow, as are we. So we encourage all of our citizens to get out and join a party and get out and meet their neighbors.
Awesome. So 25 officers responding to the parties, so nothing
Police
else
lingo.
going on?
Police lingo, I apologize, just can't get away from it.
So, and then,
All right. And then we have the Ecuador Monta playing Thursday night down at the dam for the concert in the park on the 4th. And then the 11th is apparently the big night with the Revolution 5, the Beatles tribute band. And I heard CTN report that Fox 9 was going to be there or something with ice cream or.
Door's not open, I can't.
He's probably not going to tell us from back there. All right. I'm going to suggest you check out
Yeah,
CTN.
There you go, yes.
and then Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
to our city clerk, Ms. Lensmeyer. So starting tomorrow at City Hall, if I've got it right, is the in-person direct balloting, for the primary, which is on the 9th.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Geisel, that's correct. We start direct balloting tomorrow here at City Hall, and we're open regular business hours with the exception of Saturday. We have some Saturday hours, 10 to 3, and then Monday will be open until 5. So if you'd like to vote absentee, you can do that by coming to see us and putting your ballot right in the machine starting tomorrow.
But then if you don't vote early, vote on the 9th.
Yes.
And the polling
Election
places
day.
are across, and most people should have already gotten a card with your current polling location.
That's correct. And if you have questions, you can go to mnvotes.org and click on Where Do I Vote? Or you can call the city clerk's office and we'll help you with that.
Awesome. All right.
And we can't forget, Mr. Mayor, on every Wednesday is still the Coon Rapids Farmers Market. So that's at the Ice Arena. So stop by for lots of fresh produce and goodies. That's on the afternoons, and anything else that we've got?
Your Honor.
Very good. Councilmember Rayrower?
Yeah, so I
City
just.
business?
What?
City business? Just checking. Go ahead.
So I was just at the Multicultural Night-to-Night also, and it goes 5 to 8 p.m. at the Sand Creek Athletic Complex. It should be every year, so plan. It's like 7 minutes to 8, so I think you're out of time for this one, but plan ahead next year for the Monday before, the first Tuesday in August. And I saw Chief Stanky there, who gave a great speech about working together with the community and continuing to learn and grow, which is exactly what we're looking for. And this Multicultural Night-to-Night is put on by Transformative Circle. So since 2017, they took the Coon Rapids Police Department's theme of building strength through unity to heart by sponsoring this event. So it's a great event. And then I wanted to add that we did have a recent issue at our Dominium Apartments complex at River North in Coon Rapids. So we had our seniors who picketed outside of there, and I just want to say that I will continue to support these seniors and work towards a solution
Slipped.
to keep them in their homes. And so asking Dominium to do the right thing, and that's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion by Carlson, second by Johnson to adjourn. All in favor? No. We're done.